Hello guys, this is part 47 of SQL Server. In this session we will learn about instead of delete trigger. Before continuing with this session, I strongly recommend to watch part 45 and 46 of this video series. In SQL Server, there are three types of triggers: DML, DDL, and logon triggers. DML triggers are fired automatically in response to DML events. Example of DML events include insert, update, and delete. DML triggers can further be classified into two types: after triggers and instead of triggers. After triggers are fired automatically after the triggering action, whereas instead of triggers are fired instead of the triggering action. Now we know that in journal, instead of triggers are extremely useful whenever you have a view that based on multiple tables, and if you want to either insert data into it or update a view, update that particular view, then instead of triggers are extremely useful. Along the same line, instead of delete triggers is also used to delete a row from a view that is based on multiple table. Now we have been working with this TBL department and TBL employee table. You know, in all these session of where we have discussed about triggers in this video series. So we have TBL department table, which has got department ID and department name column, and we have TBL employee table, which has got ID, name, gender, department ID columns. And if you look at these two tables, the common column between them is the department ID. Department ID column. So based on these two tables, we have created this view which returns the ID, name, gender, and department name. Okay. So department name column is coming from TBL department table, and name and ID, name, and gender are coming from TBL employee table. So obviously this view is based on these two tables, TBL employee and TBL department. Now let us say somebody is trying to delete, from the view. So obviously delete from view. So obviously delete from view where ID is equal to 1. So we are trying to delete John's record from this view. So obviously when you delete this record from this view, and we know that this view is based on these two tables, TBL employee and TBL department table. So your delete is definitely going to affect the underlying tables. So there is a confusion. Do you want to actually delete John's record or the HR department record from TBL department table? Okay. So SQL Server will actually not allow any modification that affects multiple base tables. So you are trying to update this view or delete a row from this view, and that delete is going to affect multiple base table, in this case TBL employee and TBL department. So when you try to execute this statement, you will get an error. View or function view employee details is not updatable because the modification affects multiple base tables. So let's look at this in action. So in SQL Server Management Studio, we have got these two tables. TBL employee and TBL department. Let's try to retrieve the data from them. So TBL employee table and TBL department table. So let's create a view on these two tables. Create view. So let's create a view on these two tables. Create view. Command completed successfully. Refresh the view folder. You should see the view there. So now let's select the data from the view. So select star from that specific view, so we get that data as expected. All right, now let's try to execute this delete statement. Delete from view employee where ID is equal to 1. So we get the error. View or function view employee details is not updatable because the modification affects multiple base tables. All right, so now let's create a an instead of delete trigger on this view. Okay, so obviously to create a trigger we use create trigger statement. So here is the trigger that we are creating. Let's look at this. Here is the trigger. Look at this. So we are creating this trigger, create triggers. Create trigger, a meaningful trigger name. On view employee details, and you are creating this trigger. instead of delete. So this trigger should be fired instead of delete statement. As begin end. And then all you are doing here is delete TBL employee from. Okay, so this delete statement is actually making use of a join. So we are joining TBL employee with deleted table. So we have spoken about joins in the previous session of this video series. So if you are new to joins, please check that videos. So what we are doing here is basically, we know that trigger make use of two special tables called inserted and deleted tables. Okay, inserted table will contain the newly inserted data, and we have spoken about that when we discuss about instead of insert trigger, and when we use instead of update triggers. Deleted and inserted tables, both of them are used. Deleted tables contains the data. Deleted table contains the data before update, which means the old data, and the inserted table contains the new data after the update. Okay, so instead of update, make use of, instead of update, make use of both the tables, whereas instead of delete, make use of only the deleted table. So here the deleted table contains only the deleted records, and inserted table will basically be empty. When you are making use of instead of delete trigger, similarly for instead of insert, that deleted table will be empty because you are only inserting a row. So the newly inserted row will be present in the inserted table. Okay, so what we are doing here, we are actually retrieving, we are joining the we are joining joining the deleted table, because if you delete 5 records, all these 5 records will be there in the deleted table. So we are taking all the IDs from the deleted table, joining them with the TBL employee table, and deleting them from TBL employee table. So you are doing that using joins, and another way to do it is actually to use a subquery. And if you look at subquery, it is very simple to understand. All you are saying here is delete from TBL, delete from TBL employee, where ID in select ID from deleted table. So you are taking the ID. From the deleted table, all the IDs that are present in the deleted table within the subquery, and those are the IDs are being deleted from TBL employee table. So obviously this subquery is easy to understand. Just by looking at that, they are very simple to read, but then from a performance point, in most of the cases joins are faster than subqueries. But however, there are rare cases, when you only need a subset of records from the table that you are joining with. Subqueries can be faster. Okay, so if you have two tables and you want to join those two tables, and from the other table with which you are joining, let's say it is a huge table which has got millions of records, but then in that table you only want two or three records, and there is a condition based on which you are selecting those two or three records, obviously. So in those cases, use a subquery, because you are not joining with every row. In that huge table, when you select those rows using subquery, your query will be much faster than using joins. But these are very rare. But in general, we use joins. In fact, when you use subqueries, SQL Server converts them into joins. Okay, but then in general, it is better to use joins over subquery. Okay, so that is the trigger. So that is the trigger that we are using here instead of delete. Trigger. So let's create that. Command completed successfully. So if you look at the view, itself, refresh that, and if you expand the view, you should see the trigger that we have just created. TR view employee details instead of trigger. Now let's try to delete from that view. Now let's try to delete from that view and see what is going to happen. And see what is going to happen. Now before we do that, let's select the data from the employee view. Let's select the data from the employee views. So we have record 1 and 2, John's and Mike. So execute this. Two row affected, which means we have deleted those rows. And to confirm that, let's select the rows back from the view. Select star from view. Select star from view. And you should see records with ID 1 and 2 are no longer there. And just to make sure we have deleted them from the base table. So from the employee table records, so employee records table, so execute these. So here you can see so from employee table records with the ID 1 and 2 are gone. Okay. Now if you look at this, the subquery. Now if you look at this subquery, this subquery part is actually commented, but you can either use joins or subqueries. Okay. Now if you look at this, the subquery part is actually commented, but you can either use joins or you can use joins or subquery. Subqueries. So let's try to, so let's actually uncomment this. So let's actually try to uncomment this. Uncomment this one, the subquery, and comment this. And comment this. just to prove that your subquery works in the same way. And obviously, since we have already created this trigger, you just need to alter this because it is already existed there. So alter trigger. So alter trigger, execute it. Command completed successfully. Now let's try to delete records with the ID 3 and 4. And see if it works the exact the same way. Two row affected. Let's select from view. If you look at that, let's select from view. Where is the view? Select from that, from the view. If you look at that, record with ID 3 and 4 are no longer there. Let's check that in the base table just to make sure. So record with ID 3 and 4 are no longer there, even in TBL employee table. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. But before that, I want to show you the creation of the tables. Here are the two tables which you have to create. Create table TBL employee, ID int primary key, name and varchar 50, gender and varchar 20, department ID int, constraint foreign key TBL employee, department foreign key, department ID, differences TBL department, references TBL department ID, create table TBL department ID and primary key, department name. So guys, here you should be careful. You should not first create this TBL employee table, then because you will get an error. You should first create this table TBL department table, then create this TBL employee table. Similarly, to insert the sample data, you need to first insert the TBL department table sample data and then insert the TBL employee sample data. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.